None of us are ever truly ready for the biggest turning points in our lives. You think you need to wait for a little more confidence, wait for the right moment, wait until you understand better, feel stronger, have more time. No, that moment will never come. The world doesn't operate on your personal schedule. It doesn't pause to wait for you to feel emotionally complete before you make a change. In reality, every true transformation happens when you don't have everything, but you step up anyway. The feeling you're searching for, the certainty, the sense of control, the reassurance that now is the right time, is a beautiful illusion your brain creates to keep you in your comfort zone. It confuses preparation with procrastination, planning with avoidance. It whispers in your ear, not yet, you're not good enough, wait a little longer. And if you listen, tomorrow will slip by just like today. Every morning you'll wake up in the exact same place, with goals still unmet, things you wanted to do but didn't, dreams postponed by none other than yourself. You'll have dozens of reasons that sound perfectly reasonable: being busy, being tired, not enough time, not finished learning, not skilled enough. But what's the truth? It's just how you lie to yourself so you don't have to face the fear. The fear of failure, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of being judged. It's not that you're not ready, you're just afraid. I'm not saying this to judge you. I'm showing you a simple truth. We all start in an imperfect state. Successful people don't begin with confidence. They begin with trembling hands, with doubt, with endless questions unanswered. But they don't let that stop them. They take action. They jump in even while they're scared. They write their first book while still doubting their writing voice. They start a business without knowing all the processes. They confess love without knowing if the other person feels the same. And it's that very acting before confidence, that creates breakthroughs. You don't become confident and then do something great. You do something great without confidence, and that's what builds it. Every step you take through the fog, every move you make in uncertainty is one more time you rebuild your self-image. You give your brain evidence that you can take action in fear, that you're not someone who just waits, that you are someone who dares to begin. And from that moment, you're no longer led by emotion. You become the driver of your own life. You might think you need more time to prepare, but let's be honest. Time doesn't create readiness. Action does. You'll learn faster once you start. You'll understand more deeply once you immerse yourself in reality. The things you think are barriers, lack of knowledge, lack of experience, lack of connections, will slowly be removed if you're willing to take the first step. Don't wait for the feeling. Feelings are traitors. They make you hesitate when you most need strength. Don't ask, am I ready? Ask, is this worth starting? If the answer is yes, then start now, while your hands are still shaking, while you're still unsure, while you still doubt yourself. There's no applause for the first step, no audience, no spotlight, just you, and a simple decision: act or delay. Every time you choose to act, you rewrite the neural map in your brain. You're erasing the old self, the one who kept waiting for a perfect moment that never came, and creating a new version, the one who takes action without waiting for a miracle. And that's how change begins, not through inspiration, but through decision. You don't need to be ready, you just need to start. Comfort is the sweetest feeling a human can easily get addicted to. It invites you to stay a little longer, to rest a little more, to do the familiar thing one more time. But precisely because it feels good, it's also dangerous. Comfort is not a reward, it's a trap. You think you're living peacefully, but in reality, you're just standing still. You think you're maintaining stability, but you're actually delaying your own evolution. Comfort deceives you with a false sense of security, whispering, "You're fine, don't change anything." And you listen day after day, not realizing that this very calmness is quietly draining your full potential. I'm not denying it. Everyone wants a bit of ease, a bit of rest, a bit of a safe space. But the problem is, if you let comfort dictate all your life choices, you'll end up living an average life while carrying within you the capacity for greatness. Every time you choose the easier path, every time you back down to avoid risk, you're silently rejecting a better version of yourself. And you won't feel it right away. There's no pain to warn you, no disaster strikes, just a slow depletion of dreams, of passion, of motivation. One day, you'll wake up, look back and realize how many years you've lost to the gentler, safer, less risky decisions. Comfort isn't as neutral as you think. It has an agenda. It's the sweet excuse for procrastination, the beautiful disguise for fear. When you say, "I'm not ready yet, I need more time," or now's not the right moment, you're not speaking the truth. The truth is you're avoiding discomfort. You don't want to be challenged. You don't want to do something unfamiliar. You don't want to fail. And you're hiding behind comfort to convince yourself that this avoidance is reasonable. But there's one thing you can't deny. Everything you're most proud of didn't come from your comfort zone. No true accomplishment was created under easy conditions. You can't become strong when everything is smooth. You can't become better if you don't force yourself to go beyond your limits. Comfort is temporary, but the consequences of always choosing comfort are permanent. It leads you to live a life with no highlights, no turning points, no journey beyond your limits. It keeps you stuck in jobs you're not passionate about, relationships you no longer feel connected to, and habits you know are hurting you, simply because change feels inconvenient. And if you keep accepting that, you'll lose the one chance to become who you're truly capable of being. You need to understand this. Comfort is cleverly disguised stagnation. It's not the goal. It's something to overcome. Every time you feel too at ease for too long, ask yourself, am I progressing or just repeating? If the answer is repeating, then you're falling behind. Progress always comes with discomfort. Growth always brings a certain level of unease. If you want to go far, you have to learn to accept and even actively seek discomfort. I'm not telling you to live in suffering, but I am saying this. If you want to reach true freedom, you must be brave enough to get up from that cozy chair and step into the territory where no one has drawn a map for you. Don't trust comfort. Trust action. Trust challenge. Trust your own ability to adapt. Because when you stop chasing comfort, you begin to touch the truth that you're stronger, smarter, and far more resilient than you ever believed. But you'll never know that if you just keep sitting still. Discomfort is not a sign that you should stop. It's not a red flag, not a danger alert. It's the quiet knock of a door waiting for you to open. It's a signal that you're touching the edge of where you need to be if you want to change. No growth ever happens in comfort, and no transformation ever begins from the safe zone. Discomfort is the bridge between who you are and who you could become. And only those who are conscious enough to recognize that will know how to turn discomfort into a launch pad instead of letting it pull them backward. Do you remember the first time you tried something new? Speaking in front of a crowd, stepping into a gym not knowing how to use any equipment, sitting in a meeting with people you thought were way more capable than you? What did you feel then? A racing heart, sweaty palms, a mind swirling with questions. Am I good enough? What will people think? What if I mess up? And then you escaped the situation either by staying silent or by finding an excuse to delay. Why? Because you thought that discomfort meant danger. But no, that was the moment opportunity came closer than ever. You just didn't have enough faith to keep going. The problem lies in how your brain works. Your brain wasn't built to help you grow. It was built to keep you safe. When you do something that triggers stress, the brain responds as if you're under threat. But this isn't the age of hunting anymore. There's no tiger waiting for you out there. What you're facing is an invitation to rise above yourself. Yet because that primitive mechanism still exists, you misread the signal. You think discomfort means stop, but in reality it means start. Feeling nervous, awkward, uncertain isn't proof you're unready. It's proof you're approaching something outside your familiar zone of control. And that's exactly where change happens. Every skill, confidence, and strength you want lies on the other side of discomfort. You don't learn courage from books. You learn it by stepping forward while trembling and not backing away. You don't become confident by thinking it through for a few more months. You become confident when you walk into a room that makes you feel small and still hold your ground. Discomfort is proof that you're alive, proof that you're touching your own limits, and limits only exist for one purpose: to be broken. Every time you step through something that scares you, you expand yourself a little more, like muscles. They only grow when pushed. That one extra rep, when your arms feel like they've given out, that is the moment that makes the difference. Discomfort doesn't destroy you, it builds you. But most people misread that signal. They think, if I feel nervous, I'm not ready, or if I feel insecure, I should wait longer. And those thoughts are what keep them stuck in a faded version of themselves for years. Not because they lack ability, but because they won't cross that initial emotional threshold. They let feelings dictate actions instead of letting actions reshape their feelings. And that's why they stay in place, even while their dreams overflow inside their mind. You need to change one thing. Instead of seeing discomfort as stop, see it as continue. Train yourself to respond differently. When your heart races from nerves, instead of retreating, take one more step. When you feel unsure of how to start, instead of waiting for perfection, do something, anything, no matter how small. It is action in uncertainty that paves the way to clarity. And the more you act, the more that initial discomfort fades. Not because it gets easier, but because you get stronger. Discomfort is not a signal to turn back, it's a signal to move forward. And every time you keep going despite the unease, you're rewiring yourself. You're training your brain to believe, I don't need everything to feel comfortable in order to act. And when that becomes your nature, you're no longer a prisoner of emotion. You become the one in control. And once you learn how to walk through discomfort, nothing can hold you back anymore. You often think you're being controlled by your emotions, that the reason you procrastinate is because you're lazy, sad, or lacking motivation. But no, emotions are not what's holding you back. The real culprit is your brain, more precisely, the way your brain is programmed to operate. Emotions are just signals. It's your brain that decides how you respond to those signals. And most of the time, your brain doesn't choose based on logic. It chooses based on habit. It doesn't care how much you want success, how badly you want to change. It only cares about one thing, keeping you away from risk, uncertainty, and the need to spend extra energy. So when you're about to do something new, your brain immediately fires off a series of alerts. Danger, uncertain, you might fail, it's better to wait. And you think you're reacting out of fear, but in truth you're being controlled by the brain's ancient survival mechanism. It doesn't distinguish between a real tiger in the wild and giving a speech in front of 50 people. Anything unfamiliar, unpredictable, or uncontrollable is instantly labeled as danger. As a result, you avoid, you delay, you retreat without realizing that it's your internal operating system that's blocking every effort you make to rise. You think you lack ability, but no, you just haven't learned how to bypass an outdated internal control system. You think you lack confidence, but in truth you lack a skill, the ability to recognize when your brain is lying to you, because it will whisper every logical sounding reason to keep you from acting. It's still early, you can do it tomorrow. No one's rushing you, what's the hurry? Wait until you're in the mood. You hear these phrases so often you begin to think they're your own voice, but in fact they are the voice of stagnation, programmed to keep you in your comfort zone. A zone you call normal, but is actually so calm it's slowly killing you. Here's the truth. Your brain wasn't built to help you succeed, it was built to help you survive. But now, you don't need to survive, you need to grow. And to do that, you must become the driver, not the driven. You need to clearly see, every time you try to change, eat healthier, wake up earlier, start a new project, your brain will activate a resistance mechanism. It will make you feel tired, lazy, unmotivated, but you don't need to argue with it, you just need to act. Action is the only language the brain can't twist. When you get out of bed, even though you want 5 more minutes of sleep, you're sending your brain a new signal, I'm in charge. When you open your laptop to work instead of scrolling through your phone, you're breaking an old loop. When you decide to speak up, even if your voice shakes, you're proving to your brain that anxiety doesn't get to dictate your actions. And each time you do this, you're rewriting the way your brain responds to challenges. Every small repeated action is how you reprogram the entire operating system within you. The most dangerous thing is not that you're being controlled, it's that you believe the signals of fear, procrastination, and insecurity are who you are. You label yourself, I give up easily, I have no discipline, I'm just not a decisive person. And then you live your whole life by those labels, not because they're true, but because you never challenge them. But try this. The next time you hear the voice saying, you can do it tomorrow, don't stay silent. Toss back, why not today? And then act immediately. You'll be surprised to find that the feeling of procrastination only lasts until you begin. After that, it vanishes. Because you've interrupted the biological chain reaction your brain depends on to keep you still. Remember, emotions are just expressions. The brain is the source. And when you learn how to navigate this operating system, you'll no longer be a victim of laziness, of nameless anxiety, or of the feeling of not enough. You'll become the one rewriting your script. Starting not from emotion, but from action. Because in the end, what holds you back isn't what you feel, it's that you've placed too much faith in an old system that was never built to make you great. Most people hear the word discipline and immediately feel suffocated. They picture rigid rules, long, boring, repetitive days, mornings where they have to force themselves to wake up early, meals without sugar, without salt, without joy. To them, discipline is sacrifice, an unnatural life, something that goes against human nature. But that's a damaging misunderstanding, because the truth is exactly the opposite. Discipline doesn't restrict you. Discipline is the only thing that sets you free. It's the key that unlocks the deepest kind of freedom. Inner freedom, freedom over your time, freedom to live by the direction you choose instead of being ruled by emotions, habits, or circumstances. It may sound paradoxical, but let me explain. When you live without discipline, you think you're comfortable. But that comfort is only temporary. After that comes confusion, stagnation, the dull repetition of a life you can't control. You wake up late because you were watching videos until 2 a.m. You miss deadlines because you can't focus. You eat poorly and then criticize yourself in the mirror. And you keep spinning in a cycle of short-term choices, thinking you're enjoying freedom, but really you're losing control piece by piece, losing direction, losing your ability to decide. Meanwhile, the person who lives with discipline, the one who sets limits for themselves, is the only one who's truly free. They're not dragged around by fleeting emotions. They don't have to negotiate with themselves every morning, should I work out today? They don't live in guilt from breaking promises to themselves, because they've established a clear system of action, and they respect it as a life principle. And when action becomes automated, mental energy is freed for bigger things. They can create, focus, pursue ambitious goals without being drained by small daily decisions. And that is true freedom. You can't go far if every morning begins with an internal debate. Gym or more sleep? Keep writing or scroll social media? Eat clean or give in to old habits? Every time you let emotion dictate your choice, you're paying with your future. But when you have discipline, you don't need to feel motivated to begin. You do what needs to be done because you've committed. And doing the right thing, even when you don't feel like it, especially when no one is watching, is what builds the greatest inner strength. It proves that you're no longer a slave to emotion. You're the one leading the way. Look at anyone you admire, artists, entrepreneurs, champions, and you'll see discipline there as clear as daylight. None of them achieve the extraordinary through mere inspiration. No one builds something great on spontaneity alone. It all starts with discipline, small repeated actions every day, without praise, without immediate rewards. Discipline doesn't make you rigid, it makes you trustworthy. First and foremost, trustworthy to yourself. And that's the foundation of all self-confidence. You may think, I'm not a disciplined person, I give up easily, I quit halfway. But discipline isn't an inborn trait, it's a skill. And skills can be trained if you're willing to start with the smallest things. Set a bedtime and keep it. Set a wake-up goal and don't negotiate. Commit to finishing one thing per day and see it through. Don't wait until you feel motivated. Act first. Because once you start acting, motivation will follow. And gradually, you won't even need motivation. Because now you have a system, you no longer have to struggle to do the right thing because it has become instinct. Discipline doesn't kill freedom. It's the structure that keeps freedom from collapsing. It's what turns dreams into tangible results. It's the path that takes you from dreamer to creator. And if you want the life you've imagined, you can't live at random. You must build an internal compass strong enough to keep you on track, especially on the days when your faith wavers. That's why I say discipline is not a limitation. It is the highest power you can build for yourself. And once you have it, no one, not even your former self, can stop you. You say you're tired, but have you ever paused and asked yourself, am I truly tired, or am I just drained by a life that's too small for my potential? What weighs you down each morning isn't necessarily work or responsibility or even doing too much. It's that you're living far below the standard your heart longs for. You're not tired from overexertion. You're tired from forcing yourself to fit into a smaller version of who you've already outgrown. The human body is designed to respond to purpose. When you set a vision that's big enough, even if the journey is hard, you'll still find the strength. You become exhausted when there's nothing left to strive for, when every day repeats the last, when there's nothing ahead that excites you. It's not overwork that drains you, it's the lack of challenge, the lack of motivation, the absence of a sense of progress. The fatigue you're blaming on your job or your circumstances is actually spiritual exhaustion, the kind that happens when you can't see where you're going anymore. There were times in your life when you were so busy you barely had time to breathe, and yet you felt full of energy. Why? Because you were chasing something that made you feel alive. You can work 12 hours a day and still feel energized, as long as you know why you're doing it. But when you settle into a rhythm that's steady, safe, not wrong, but uninspired, when you stop taking risks, stop learning, stop doing things that scare you, that's when you start to feel, I'm tired, even if the day wasn't particularly hard. The fatigue of living inside your comfort zone is the worst kind of tired. It doesn't hit you all at once. It creeps in. It drains the life from you slowly, through days that look exactly the same. You don't notice it eroding you because everything on the outside seems fine. Work is steady, life is stable, but on the inside you're dying from a lack of purpose. Because nothing is making you tremble with excitement. No challenge is forcing you to grow in order to overcome. You're playing too small, and the potential inside you is screaming to be used. Don't confuse exhaustion with emptiness. When you work hard for something you believe in, you may feel physically tired, but mentally you're on fire. On the other hand, if you spend all day doing things that don't feel meaningful, you might not do much at all and still feel completely drained. You don't need more rest. You need a bigger reason to get up. You need to feel like you're living for something more than just existing, because humans don't just need rest. They need to burn. And only with a big enough challenge, a strong enough personal mission, will you rediscover that fire within you. The real question you should be asking isn't, how do I stop feeling tired? It's, am I aiming high enough? If you're only living to finish tasks, to get by, to avoid criticism, of course you'll feel tired. But if you're living to make an impact, to expand your version of self, to overcome fear and reach something you once thought impossible, then even when you're tired, you'll still want to keep going. Because at that point, it's no longer just work, it's part of who you are. It's time to be honest. Are you tired because you lack a challenge? Are you staying still out of fear of failure and calling it conserving energy? Are you avoiding a greater role in your life just because it makes you feel uncertain? If the answer is yes, then you've just found the real reason for your ongoing fatigue. Don't look for more rest, look for a bigger life. You don't need more coffee, you need a vision that makes you rise without hesitation. You don't need more advice, you need a decision that you will no longer waste your energy on a life too small for your potential. When you start playing at the level you're truly meant for, the tiredness disappears. It's replaced by a sense of being fully alive, with direction, with purpose, and nothing can stop you from moving forward. It's not failure, it's not mistakes, it's that quiet feeling of good enough that silently, steadily kills your potential and no one notices. It doesn't show up like a fall, it arrives like a soft pillow. So soft that you no longer want to stand up. Because on the surface, everything seems fine. Your job is fine, your income is fine, your health is fine, your relationships are fine. You're not at rock bottom, but you're not soaring either. You're floating in a space I call the ambition freeze zone, a space where people live just comfortably enough to have no motivation to change, but not enough to feel truly fulfilled. The trap of good enough lies in how reasonable it sounds. It doesn't hurt, it doesn't make you crash, and because of that, you don't see a reason to break free. As you get used to this steady rhythm, you don't even notice yourself slipping backward, not because someone pushed you down, but because you simply stopped moving forward. You chose safety, you chose stability, you chose to hold on to what you have instead of challenging yourself to create something more. And then you start justifying it. This is okay, I don't need more, compared to others, I'm doing fine. But if you have to convince yourself that you're okay, clearly you're not truly okay. Take an honest look at yourself. Didn't you once have bolder dreams? Didn't you once want to do something that scared you, but also made your heart race? Didn't you believe you'd go further, live larger, create deeper impact? And now here you are, living a just enough life, repeating old routines, doing familiar things, meeting predictable people, telling yourself, everything's fine. But deep down, you know, you've stopped growing. You've made peace with mediocrity, wrapped in the disguise of reason. Good enough is the greatest enemy of greatness. It doesn't threaten you with pain, it seduces you with comfort. It doesn't need to knock you down, it only needs to make you satisfied with less than you're capable of. And that is the most brutal kind of waste. Because you're not being stopped by the outside world, you're being stalled by your own contentment. You were never tied down, you just voluntarily stayed. The scary part is, when you live in good enough for too long, you start to lose the ability to imagine anything greater. You stop dreaming big, you stop asking questions, you stop challenging yourself. And once your mind accepts that this is the limit, every action that follows will shrink to match. You'll choose easier paths, lower goals, and companions who don't challenge you. Every decision will be driven by one goal, not to disturb the current state. But that calm is a heavy price you're paying with the best part of yourself. You weren't born to live like that. There is still fire inside you, still things that keep you up at night, things you want to try, to create, to pursue to the very end. And you know it, you're just waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to want more from life. So let me tell you, you do have that right. Not just the right, but the responsibility. The responsibility to not waste your talent, to not lose your courage, to not bury your passion just because your current life is not that bad. Don't let the good enough trap hold you back. Dare to look at the truth. There is still so much within you left unexplored. You are not finished. You haven't gone far. You haven't reached your true limits. And that's not frightening, it's magnificent, because it means there's still so much more to do, to learn, to become. The game isn't over, but you must step out of the enough zone. Not because you're greedy, but because you know you are capable of more. And if you don't do it for yourself, then who will? I think so far we really need to start by saying this quote and then expounding it a little bit. If you're waiting for the perfect moment, then listen closely. It's never coming. There is no such thing as the ideal day to begin. There's no morning you'll wake up with full confidence, all the resources, knowledge, inspiration, and guaranteed success. Everyone thinks the only thing you truly lack is a firm decision, not motivation, not favorable conditions, a specific action that says, I choose to begin right now, no more waiting. You don't form new habits by reading a few more books. You don't change your lifestyle by waiting until next month. You don't build a business, write a book, learn a new skill, or improve yourself by imagining the right time. If there's something you admire in someone else, remember this: they didn't have a better starting day than you, they just started. While still afraid, they stepped onto the path without any guarantees. And that decision is what made everything else possible. Procrastination is your brain's most subtle art form. It convinces you that waiting a bit longer will be better, but that bit longer never ends. You think you need more time, but what you truly need is courage. Courage to act before you're ready. Courage to begin without certainty. Courage to fail and learn while moving forward. Successful people don't see the future more clearly than you. They just have one thing in common. They don't let uncertainty paralyze them. They act and adjust later. You can't plan for every scenario, and you can't sit still waiting until it feels right. Feelings are unstable. Today you're motivated, tomorrow you're drained. Today you're excited, tomorrow you're full of doubt. If you put your life in the hands of your emotions, you'll always be dragged around by something unstable. But if you anchor it to a decision made with clarity, you'll begin to generate movement, even small movement. And that movement is what truly creates change. Decisions don't have to be perfect, they just have to be clear enough that you don't retreat. It can be a very small action, but if you repeat it, it becomes a powerful push. Write your first paragraph. Turn off social media for an hour to focus. Call someone who can guide you. Wake up 30 minutes earlier to do something you always claim you don't have time for. Small actions, but symbolic. Because you're not just changing behavior, you're reprogramming your identity. The question isn't, am I ready? But am I willing to learn while doing? Because you'll never feel fully capable of starting something big. Confidence doesn't come before action, it's a result of action. You act first, and belief follows. You move forward, and the path will unfold. The sad truth is that too many smart, talented, capable people sit there thinking, planning, waiting for a sign, analyzing, one more time, until the opportunity is gone. And they call it being careful. But in reality, it's fear, wearing the mask of logic. You can't control all the external factors, but you can control one thing: the decision to begin. Once you decide, truly decide, everything around you starts to shift. You spot opportunities faster, you filter your actions better, you reset the standards you hold yourself to, and when you stick to that commitment daily, regardless of how you feel or what happens, you're no longer a dreamer, you become a builder. So if you're at a crossroads, if you're waiting for a sign, if you're holding off until the circumstances are just right, let me break it to you: no sign is coming. The world won't give you permission. There is only you and your choice. You either keep waiting and live in a cycle of what-ifs, or you rise, plant the first stake in the ground, even if it's small, and let it become the starting point of everything you haven't dared to believe you could do, because you can. And it all begins with a decision, not perfect, but truly committed. You don't fail because you lack ability, not because you're not smart enough, fast enough, or lucky enough. You fail because there's a voice in your head and you believe it. That voice doesn't have to scream. It just whispers softly, logically. It tells you that you're not good enough, that you'll be rejected, that people are laughing behind your back, that it's better to wait until you're more ready, have more time, more support. And you nod, thinking that's caution. But in truth, you've just agreed with a lie. But the danger isn't that you hear that voice. The danger is that you never question it. You assume that if a thought appears in your head, it must be true. But you forget that your brain wasn't built to make you great. It was programmed to keep you safe. And to do that, it must convince you to avoid risk, avoid change, avoid anything that might cause discomfort, even just a little. Which means your brain will always react negatively to any opportunity with growth potential. And you call it intuition. But that so-called intuition isn't always inner wisdom. Often it's just old fear disguised as experience. You once said something foolish in public, and now your brain assumes never speak up again. You once got hurt in a relationship, and now your brain says don't trust anyone again. You once tried a business and lost money, so your brain tells you safety means a monthly paycheck. And you never questioned those conclusions, you just lived by them. Slowly, those temporary limitations turned into fixed identities. I'm not a leader. I'm not good at speaking. I'm not brave enough. You repeat them so often, you start believing they're who you are. But the truth is, that's not who you are. Those are lies repeated in your mind so many times that they've started to feel like truth. And if you don't wake up, they'll steer you in the wrong direction your entire life. They'll make you turn down opportunities you were meant to pursue. They'll shrink you, lead you to choose the easier path. End every year with a sigh of what if, not because you lack the ability, but because you didn't question your belief system enough. You need to do something most people never learn: question the voice in your head. Next time you think, I can't do this, ask, based on what? When you hear, no one will care, challenge it. Or am I just afraid no one will care? Every negative thought must be cross-examined, because if you don't question them, they become your fate. And fate isn't something, it's the result of thousands of small decisions you don't even realize you're making, simply because you don't challenge your own thoughts. Your strength isn't in never doubting yourself. Your strength is in knowing your thoughts might be wrong and acting anyway. Every successful person you admire has heard those voices, but they didn't use them as reasons to step back. They acted while the voice still whispered, be careful, you might fail. And with each action, they proved the opposite. They broke the loop. They collected evidence that they can do hard things even when they don't feel ready. Remember, you don't need to silence the negative voice in your head to move forward. You just need to stop listening to it. It'll still be there. It'll still show up every time you step into something new. But you can walk with it. No need to mute it. Just make sure you're in the driver's seat and it stays in the passenger seat. You acknowledge its presence, but you don't let it make the decisions. When you start acting against what you used to believe was true, you'll be surprised to see reality isn't nearly as scary as you imagined. Everything begins to change, not because the world shifts, but because you stop believing in an outdated version of yourself. You don't need more confidence to begin, you just need to believe less in the lies. And from that moment, you're no longer the person limited by the voice in your head. You become the one who rewrites it. And that is the person you were born to become. We live as if we have an entire lifetime to begin, as if we can postpone everything to another day, another year, and that some better version of ourselves in the future will come finish what we left undone. But that day never comes. Next month passes, next year passes, and someday gradually turns into, it could have been, but because you didn't have time, but because you kept pretending you had forever. And that very pretending killed the strongest part of you, your ability to choose action, when no one's pushing, no one's watching, no one's expecting anything from you but your existence. You think you'll begin when things are more stable, when finances are stronger, when your children are older, when your mood is better, but no circumstance magically becomes ideal for you to start living the life you deserve. If you don't choose action amid the chaos, you won't act when peace comes either. Because the habit of postponing doesn't vanish with external conditions. It can only be replaced by an internal choice. The choice to show up, the choice to stop waiting, the choice to live as if every day is the last chance you're given to build the life you truly want. You won't be awakened by a divine sign from the universe. No one is coming to knock on your door and say, it's time. Because awakening never comes from outside. It only happens when you look in the mirror and honestly admit you've delayed for too long. That no one can save you from the feeling of living below your potential, except you. And salvation doesn't lie in more understanding, it lies in beginning, in acting, despite the fear, despite not being ready, despite every reason trying to hold you back. Time is the one resource you can't borrow, can't store, can't negotiate. Every passing day is a piece of your life that has been spent, non-refundable, unrepeatable. And the irony is that people only start valuing time when they think they're running out of it. But you don't have to wait until it's too late. You can become conscious now, today, by asking yourself one simple question. If this were my last year with the energy to pursue what I want, what would I do differently? That answer is the guidance you've been seeking. You don't have to do everything at once, but you must do the first thing. Send that email, write the first line, book the appointment, leave the relationship that's lost its life, turn off the TV and start a course. Even just one small step, but it's the only step that matters, the step where you choose action instead of dreaming. And the beautiful thing is, when you start, life changes rhythm. You see everything differently. You stop complaining because you feel in control. You stop comparing because you're building something of your own and you no longer feel left behind because you've stepped off the starting line. Don't live as if you have forever. Don't gamble on a nameless day in the future because someday will become never unless you plant a marker now. Act not because you're ready, but because you can't accept merely existing. Act not to prove anything to anyone, but so you won't have to live with regret. Because people rarely regret the mistakes they made, they regret the chances they didn't take. You're not promised a long future, but you are given the power to decide this present moment. And if you use that power, if you choose to act instead of delay, to move instead of analyze, to go forward instead of waiting for the right feeling, then every day you live will carry more weight. Not the weight of pressure, but the weight of meaning. The knowing that you're truly living, not just marking time. And that is the greatest freedom. No one can give it to you, but you can give it to yourself through a single action. Today, right now, not perfect, just real.